My name is Chris Penrose. I'm an extension educator for agriculture and natural resources.
My specialization is basically in forages and livestock. So
And now we're going to initiate the stockpiling study. So you can actually start stockpiling grass by just by simply letting it grow. You don't have to do anything with it, but typically you can get an extra ton of dry matter and you can get 2 percentage points higher in terms of crude protein. For example, if you didn't put any fertilizer on it and it had a crude protein content of 10%, when you add nitrogen fertilizer, it'll typically go up to about 12%. And typically we can get an extra ton of dry matter per acre when we stockpile with nitrogen. In this study, we're using a control, which means we do nothing. We're going to use 100 pounds of urea. And then, because urea has the potential to be volatile, in hot conditions like this, if we don't get rain for a couple days, it can start volatilizing or simply evaporate up into the atmosphere. So what we're also using is a urease inhibitor in these trials, where we'll add 2 quarts per ton of nitrogen, of course on an appropriate basis with these plots, of agrotane with urea. And the other thing that we're using is the equivalent of 46 pounds of nitrogen per acre of ammonium sulfate, which is 2100.
So once we go out and harvest these plots, we need to put them in dryers and dry them out, and then we'll convert those weights once they're done, pounds per acre on a dry matter basis. So this year, the control plots actually averaged just a little bit over a ton at 2,200 pounds. When we added urea, it averaged about 2,800 pounds. And then we added urea and agrotane, about 3,200 pounds, and ammonium sulfate, about 2,900 pounds. So really what that meant is the urea alone averaged about 620 pounds above the control, almost 1,000 pounds with urea and agrotane, and about 650 pounds with ammonium sulfate alone. Typically speaking, we would expect to, as I mentioned earlier, have a couple percentage points higher in crude protein, and this year that was not the case. Actually, the average of our control, which means we put no fertilizer on at all, grass out there had 9.4% crude protein, which is actually pretty good. And then when we had the averages of the urea-only plots, that was 9.8%, so not much higher. The urea and agrotane was only 10.4%, and the ammonium sulfate alone was 10.1%, so we didn't get the results that we expected. Really, the only thing that we can say with confidence, based on all of this study, is that adding nitrogen improves the yield.